again, based on when I asked him, where in the Bible does it show that God is that God is logical? The one verse that he did give doesn't show to me that he's logical. But again,
okay,
this has already been answered.
We can go off this.
This was already answered. She being intellectually dishonest. I answered the question about God being logical. I answered it in full. Now, either she has a very poor memory or she's being absolutely intellectually dishonest, that I explained specifically how and why from the Bible. Now, when she says, well, he's just being arbitrary, she is trolling. I was not arbitrary. I did not pick verses at random. I pointed out that when Moses was confronted God, or excuse me, Moses was speaking. Okay, that's right. I said this is one of several examples that deal that God's nature is self-identical, which is the essence of the principle of identity. A always equals A. And since God is an eternal being, when he says, I, the Lord, change not. When, for example, when it says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, these and many other verses are talking about the immutable nature of God. That God in his core nature, in terms of his character qualities, attributes and properties such as intelligence, his ability to reason, is unchangeable, and it is self-identical. This is a totally uncontroversial issue. The same is true with the law of non-contradiction. Now, this is the second or the third time I explained it. The Bible is crystal clear in many Bible verses where God only speaks and reveals the truth. For example, it says in Titus, it says, God is without deception or falsehood. And in fact, in the Greek, in Titus, I believe it's chapter 1, when you actually look up the Greek word even has far more strength and weight to it than the English expression. Then in Hebrews 6, it says God is completely incapable of lying. Okay? Because that would mean that God would contradict himself or the actual nature of reality. So we can find the very principles of logic being a product of God himself in terms of who God is and the way his mind operates. And also, God cannot be what he is not, which would be the principle of the excluded middle. Either something is A or it is not A. Okay? And these principles are all throughout the Bible. The problem is she doesn't care. She doesn't like what I'm saying because she wants to find that there are contradictions in the Bible. Did you hear a rebuttal to any of the specifics that I gave? No. What did she say? Oh, well, DD was just simply being arbitrary. Hardly at all. Anybody who is intellectually honest, who is listening to me today, what I have said is highly specific and derivative of what the Bible defines and describes about the God of the Bible. In no way was it arbitrary at all. But somebody who wants to troll and to annoy other people will say that their opponent is being arbitrary.
I have a question.
I just want to say real quick, I actually agree with that. That's why I asked Nevin, if you're saying he's being arbitrary, can you at least give some context for the scripture?
Yeah, as I said in the side chat,
you couldn't even do that.
No, I did. It says, as I said in the side chat, being self-identical does not necessitate being logical. It just doesn't. It just means, as Alvi said, at best, it demonstrates that he adheres.
Unbelievable!
We're done here.
Unbelievable! She's trolling.
I'm done with it.
She's clearly trolling.
Moses says, may I say who sent me? He asks for God's name. The Israelites will want to know who has sent me. And God replies with a sentence, Ehye asher ehye. This is a first-person sentence that can be translated, I am who I am, or perhaps I will be who I will be, or perhaps I cause to be what I cause to be. We really don't know. but it has something to do with being. So he asks who God is. God says, I am who I am, or I will cause to be what I will cause to be. So Moses, wisely enough, converts that into a third person formula. Okay, he will be who he will be. He is who he is. Yahweh, Asher Yahweh. So God's answer to the question of his name is with this sentence. And Moses converts it from a first person to a third person sentence. He will be who he will be. He is who he is. He will cause to be. I think most people think now what he will cause to be. And that sentence gets shortened to Yahweh. This is the Bible's explanation for the name Yahweh. And as the personal name of God, some have argued that the name Yahweh expresses the quality of being, an active, dynamic being. This God is one who brings things into being, whether it's a cosmos from chaos or now a new nation from a band of runaway slaves. But it could well be that this is simply God's way of not answering Moses' question. We've seen how the Bible feels about revealing names, and the divine being who struggled and wrestled with Jacob sure didn't want to give him his name. So I've often wondered if we're to read this differently. Who am I? I am who I am, and never you mind.
I am what I am, and that's all what I am. I'm fly like a sailor man.
What's the truth maker of logical statements?
Well, if you mean is there some sort of ontology in virtue of which they're true, there isn't any. The purely logical truths are just, in that sense, trivial. They don't have an ontology. So, I mean, what you could say is if you want to have a truth maker, in virtue of what are they true, they're just true in virtue of the meaning of the symbols that are used in the sentence. There isn't any sort of thing that in virtue of which a purely logical truth is true.
Oh, shut the fuck up!